news. We're here to have the recap show where we cover last week's show. We had 3 shows in exactly 10 minutes. So let's try to get it done in 10 minutes. Hey, Carlos, welcome. We are recapping last week. Welcome to the show again.
Thank you, Tulio. Pleasure.
All right. Yes. So last week we had 3 shows. The first one was Software is Eating Your Car with Hemant Sikaria. And we talked about monitoring energy infrastructure using AI and software with Vikhyat Chaudhry. And then collaborative enterprise AI with James Briggs. So let's go through the first one. Software is eating your car. It was interesting to know that unlike a computer which only has one CPU, cars have multiple CPUs controlling various things. And with software, companies like Tesla can do updates to the systems over the air, whereas a lot of other car manufacturers are still requiring customers to go in person to get, for example, a software update for a transmission or an engine or ignition system or what have you, which in the days of COVID, that's not exactly the most preferred thing to do, right? To show up in person. So
absolutely not.
So they've created a solution that allows 2 things. One, to monitor the data from the car so that manufacturers can get insights on things that are happening that could even improve manufacturing. Like, for example, someone keeps hitting the, those OnStar buttons or the emergency buttons where they're trying to actually hit the garage door. Maybe that's a design flaw. Having that kind of feedback would be very helpful to a manufacturer, but also the ability to go ahead and download updates that don't necessarily require someone to go in person. The one thing that came up was the question about a lot of the American manufacturers who have the kind of relationship with the dealership where you go in for service that's part of the deal, right? They sell your car, they make money from the service. So does this limit that business model in terms of not requiring consumers to go in to get their car serviced? And it looks as though there's a lot more collaboration happening between dealership and manufacturers to enable these kinds of updates. And these updates aren't just for cars, it's for trucks, it's for fleets and motorcycles, and even electric scooters to do quick updates. So I thought it was interesting that a small company like that has taken on such a big challenge. They're still a startup, but they have some key clients, and I'm poised for some success because this is definitely something that's needed. So I enjoy that discussion. What about you guys? Hi, Kim. Welcome.
Hi, Kim.
What about you guys? We had 2 more shows, which is the other one was monitoring energy infrastructure using AI with Vikhyat Chaudhry, and then collaborative enterprises with James Briggs. What do you guys want to talk about?
Sure. Well, I myself participated in the collaborative enterprise AI talk with James Briggs. And that's all about unlocking global AI innovations for better human experiences. So what they do at AI Collaborator, and I think he used this description himself, sort of like the matchmaker, right? Of putting large Fortune 500 companies together with smaller startups who are AI oriented, right? And then they have that matchmaking role, and then they are kind of help guide that process and mentor that process. And I thought it was really interesting because what they do, their model, as far as I understand it, is to kind of put the money in the hands of the ideation, which I think help that process. So I thought that was really, really great because a lot of times there's these small companies who have these great, innovative, groundbreaking ideas, but they don't have the ability to fund that. And then you have these, companies that perhaps have the money but don't have the idea. And so I think it's a beautiful way to merge that.
Well, it's interesting. There's so many players in the AI space, especially I think they serve mostly Fortune 500 companies, which obviously have budgets to do these initiatives. But the biggest challenge is how do you identify the right set of experience for what you need? And the focus for them is improving the customer experience, or at least the experience of consumers. So if you're a Fortune 500 and you're just struggling to figure out how do we leverage these tools, how do we ethically use the algorithms so that they don't necessarily box a certain group of people out, but they're more inclusive, which is something that's come up. We've learned in recent interviews that's a challenge when you just let the system figure out the algorithm, it might skew incorrectly. So you have to have some ethics approach to it. And he's built a network of people that can basically, those companies can tap into to gain expertise. So for any organization that's got an AI project, especially those focused on improving the customer experience, definitely reach out to James. Check out that show. He's got a network of practitioners that you can leverage. Carlos, you wanted to talk about monitoring energy infrastructure using AI with Vikhyat?
Yeah, absolutely, Tulio. Thank you so much. When I asked Vikhyat, I hope I got that right, Vikhyat Chaudhry, our guest, about we were talking about how can AI and software help in preventing power outages and such. I was a little bit intrigued, to say the least, and I remember asking Vikhyat specifically about the part in which AI and the software part can help not only the infrastructure companies like utility companies and such, but also the end user. How can we become aware, or how can these tech tools help us become more aware of what we need to do to prevent all this from happening? Where's our share of responsibility in being informed? Maybe through an app or some other device, that kind of prompts us or tells us what's going on, and what we as individuals and as a society can do to prevent all these terrible things from happening. Especially when I say terrible, I mean when I'm talking about the wildfires and such, and then also maybe power outages. Maybe we're overusing the infrastructure that we already have, and we need to become aware of it. I don't know. I'm just thinking. But so that's what stood out to me. I think that's very promising on what companies like Buzz Solutions is working on towards helping the end user and the community and society at large to become aware of this and be even educated and about these matters. So I'm looking forward to see what comes out, and keep an eye on Buzz Solutions, which is our guest company, and see what they have to say for themselves.
Well, look, I mean, there's really no excuse today for energy companies to not monitor, for example, overgrown brush around a pole that's holding up a electrical line, right? Overgrown brush could easily be a problem. That's one of the things that happened last year in Southern California. A light pole fell, and there was just too much stuff, and it caught fire. So there's tools to monitor that. There's drones. There's all kinds of technology to get ahead of that, to be smart about tracking these kinds of risks. Farming's been using it for years already now, but the energy sector hasn't. So it was interesting to learn that there's really no excuse. There's technology and tools that we could use. So those companies listening, check out the show, and definitely reach out to Vikhyat, his company, Buzz Solutions, who I think has a great technology in place. All right, we're coming up on time. Carlos, what do we got coming up this week? We got 3 more shows this week, right?
3 more shows. We got a full week. Tomorrow we have The Accidental Entrepreneur with Jeff Kaufman from Trent. And on Wednesday, we're going to be talking about aligning sales and marketing teams during times of change with Randy Wooton from Seismic. I hope I got that right. And finally, on Thursday, we're going to be speaking about communication, just as important as code, with Scott Ford, the CEO and co-founder of Corgi Bytes. So those are the 3 conversations we'll be having next week, Tulio. They should be interesting, as all are of our DojoLIVE interviews.
All right, everyone. See you back tomorrow, 1 p.m. Pacific. Don't miss it.
Right here on DojoLIVE. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.